Hello, great to have you back for Bible Words in Hebrew. My name is Elske Vaal and I love teaching about the Hebrew language, the language of the Hebrew Bible. You don't need any knowledge of Hebrew or of biblical Hebrew to follow this study and to keep former students engaged. Sometimes there's a little bit of grammar in the study, but not too much. Don't be discouraged by that. Even without knowledge of biblical Hebrew, knowledge of grammar, I think this study can be beneficial to you. Today I want to study a word from a blessing from the Jewish morning prayer. This prayer is recited every morning in synagogue or at home, and one of these prayers says, "Blessed are you, Adonai our God, King of the universe, who releases the imprisoned." And this study focuses on the word prisoner or imprisoned. And I think that's a very relevant topic for this time. As I record it, it is January 31st of 2025. And we are in the middle of the first part of the deal between Israel and Hamas, and we see hostages being released from Hamas captivity. And this prayer states, God frees the imprisoned, and the Bible frequently mentions prisoners, and I think we could also perhaps read hostages there where it says that. And I've always found the Bible relevant, but in recent years I feel it is even more current and accurate to what we are experiencing in the world today, and I think that's quite striking. So I wanted to do this study about the word prisoner. For example, we see the word in Psalm 79 verse 11. I use the Koran Jerusalem Bible translation for these studies, and there it says, "Let the groaning of the prisoners come before thee. According to the greatness of thy power, preserve a remnant of those who are appointed to die." It's a prayer for prisoners, and the word that is translated as prisoner is the word Ásier, and it appears in the text just in the same way as it does in the dictionary, so it's quite easy, this one. When we look it up in the dictionary, my dictionary says prisoner, captive or exile for the word Ásier, and as I mentioned, I think we can also read hostage here. Some word connections. In Hebrew, word connections are very significant because when characters of a word are the same or overlap, we can expect some word connection, and the word will become more alive to us and will speak to us even more. So one of those word connections is asar. It's kind of the root word. It's the verb from which our word asir stems. And asar means to bind, to seize, to put in prison, or even to charge oneself with. You can take a bound upon yourself. The first appearance of this word is Genesis 39 verse 20, and we will see this verse further in this study. Second word connection, seer. Seer means, among other things, thorns, and we see this word in Hosea 2 verse 8, where it says, "I will lay thorns in her path, so that she will return to me." And here hardship, symbolized by a thorn, seems to be used by God to call his people back to him. And another related word is yasar. Yasar means to chastise, to reprove, to correct, to instruct, or to be chastised, warned, or instructed. And also the word musar, which means instruction or correction, is related to this word yasar. And this word appears, for example, in Psalm 2, verse 10, "Be warned, O judges of the earth." And I think that is a very relevant verse for today. What I do not mean to say, of course, is that those currently held hostage in Gaza must be warned or had to learn a lesson or had to be instructed. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. However, in biblical times in Israel, times of hardship often led the people to call out to God and to ask themselves or to reflect on whether they had strayed from his path and to return to him. And even as a society, not as individuals, but as a society, people would acknowledge that they had failed to heed warnings and were now facing the consequences and were humbling themselves to return back to God. So, that about the word yasar. The different characters of a word in Hebrew also have something to say about the word. And the first character of this word is Aleph. Aleph has a numerical value of 1, and it means firstling, first one, pioneer, leader of cows. And also it symbolizes God, who is the one, the first, who says of himself, "I am Echad, I am one." Hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, Echad. That's Aleph. And in the book of Ezekiel, we read that God is even the first one to go into exile. Ezekiel sees the glory of God rise above the temple and move eastward to where the people would go into exile. So God even leads his people into exile. They are not alone there. Second letter, Samech, numerical value of 60, means snake or serpent or opponent, but also sustenance or support. It seems that we need an opponent even to propel us into the right way, to flee from the opponent, to do the right thing. And Samech is also the first letter of the word Saviv, which means surround or protect, like the mountains surrounding Jerusalem. That's how the Lord surrounds his people, says one of the Psalms. Yud. Yud has a numerical value of 10. It means blessing hand or hand lifted up in praise, humbleness, and it appears in the 4-letter name of God. And it reminds me of something in the New Testament where Paul is singing. You could almost see him raising his hands. I don't know whether he did that, but he's singing and praising, which also is in the understanding of the word, of the letter Yud. He's singing in prison, and the prison opens up while he's praising God there. And the last letter is Resh. Resh has a numerical value of 200, and it means head or predecessor or principle or even beginning. And interestingly, 3 out of the 4 letters relate to beginnings. The Aleph, of course, and the Resh, and also the Yud is seen as one of the first letters with which the Hebrew alphabet was built. And even though imprisonment suggests stagnation, the word Ásier also contains an idea of a new beginning. So I think that's very interesting. People can, of course, be imprisoned in many ways, not just physical, but also mentally, can be imprisoned by ideas or maybe habits that keep you imprisoned and prevent you from doing what you really want to do. So I think that that's also a kind of imprisonment that we can keep in mind when we study verses like these. Comparing verses, the first mention, as I said, is Genesis 39 verse 20, and then it appears again in verse 22. There it says, "And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. And the officer of the prison committed Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatever they did there, he was the doer of it." Now you see that I made the word bound green, that is the verb asar that we mentioned in one of the previous dias, and Joseph, although in a very restricted place, was able to show who he was, and God gave him favor. So even in this prison, Joseph stood out. Isaiah 14 verse 17, I also read verse 16. "They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, that destroyed its cities, that opened not the house of his prisoners?" This is the king of Babylon, and he's described as one who did not let his prisoners return home. And Isaiah 14 describes the fall of the king of Babylon. Zechariah 9 verses 11 and 12. "As for thee also, because of the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit in which there was no water. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Even today will I restore to thee a double promise." Return to the stronghold. I think that's a beautiful way to tell people who are imprisoned physically or mentally to hold fast to what you know and what you believe. Psalm 68 verse 7. "God makes the lonely ones dwell in a house. He brings out the prisoners into prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a parched land." Psalm 69 verse 34. "For the Lord hears the poor, and he despises not his prisoners." Psalm 102 verse 21. I also read verse 20. "For he has looked down from the height of his sanctuary. From heaven did the Lord behold the earth, to hear the groaning of the prisoner, to loose those who are appointed to death." These are beautiful promises, of course. And Psalm 107 verse 10 says, "Such as sat in darkness and in the shadow of death, bound in affliction and in iron." Psalm 107 has a lot of examples of what people go through, what the people of Israel went through in their history with God. And when you read Psalm 107 further, after verse 10, you see that they called on God and they reflected on their walk, whether they had gone astray. So what I mentioned before, the people asking themselves, where did we go wrong from their imprisonment, and calling again to God and trying to find the right path. But then Job, of course, has another voice in the Bible. Job 3 verse 18. Here he talks about death and the place where the dead people are. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the slave driver. Here Job says, I wish I had never been born, or I wish I was born dead. Then I would be in a place where I was at ease. Because he says, yes, I am afflicted very much, but it is not because of something I did. I know that I am right with God. And I think this is also a very important verse in the Bible. Job's friends say you should search your ways. And I think we as people all too often say when people expect hardship, well, maybe he or she should search his or herself and see where they went wrong. I think you can only look into your own heart and see where you are wrong, and not like Job's friends tell your friends, well, you should, when they are in trouble, say, well, you should search yourself and see where you were wrong. As Job said, I was not wrong, but the Lord seems to be against me. And the last verse where we find the word Ásier, I use the Jewish Tanakh to prepare for these videos. So Lamentations, of course, in the Christian Bible comes before the prophets, I guess, yeah. But in the Hebrew Bible, it is after the prophets that Psalms and Job and Lamentations are placed. So Lamentations 3 verse 34, I also read 35 and 36, and you see at the beginning of each verse the lamed. That's because Lamentations is an acrostichon, and every 3 verses start with the next letter from the Hebrew Bible. And here these 3 verses start with the letter lamed, and lamed is the only letter that goes through the imaginary upper line. Well, here we go. To crush underfoot all the prisoners of the earth, to turn aside the right of a man before the face of the Most High, to subvert a man in his cause, the Lord approves not. So we see here promises of God, and the study of Ásier reminds us of God's power to free, to redeem, and to restore. Thank you for watching. This book, Hebrew in 6 Days, is a book I recommend to study the Hebrew language. It's not just grammar, it's also a lot of information, and well, this course caused me to fall in love with the Hebrew language, so very much recommend it. If you like this video, please subscribe, put a thumbs up, or let me know any other way. I'd love to hear from you. For now, have a blessed Sabbath, a peaceful Sabbath, and a good Sunday. Bye. להתראות.